The alarm bells rang through the Hunt's flagship like angry metal birds. Commander Zektar's 4 eyes snapped open as his sleeping pod hissed and opened. His blue skin turned darker with stress as he read the emergency message on his wall screen. Commander to the bridge immediately. Unknown vessel detected. Class 210 energy signature confirmed. Zektar's blood went cold. Class 210 meant Deathworld. The worst kind of planet in the galaxy. Places where nothing should live, but somehow life found a way to grow in the most terrible conditions. His people had a saying, better to fly into a black hole than land on a death world. He ran through the metal halls of his ship, his 6 legs moving fast on the smooth floor. Other crew members pressed against the walls to let him pass. Their faces showed the same fear he felt. Everyone knew what Class 210 meant. The bridge door slid open with a soft whisper. His crew worked at their stations with quick, nervous movements. The main screen showed empty space filled with distant stars. But Zektar knew looks could lie. "Report," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Science Officer Plix turned from her station. Her green tentacles moved in worried patterns. "We detected the energy signature 3 minutes ago, Commander. The computer matched it to our records. It's definitely from Earth." Earth. The name made everyone on the bridge go quiet. Every child in the galaxy knew stories about Earth. It was the planet that killed everything sent to study it. The weather could freeze or burn you in the same day. The ground shook and split open without warning. The water fell from the sky like tiny bullets. Even the plants were dangerous. Worst of all were the creatures that lived there. The report said they were smart but savage. They fought each other constantly. They ate other living things while they were still alive. They even fought the planet itself and somehow won. "Where's the ship?" Zektar asked. "Still scanning, sir. The energy readings are strange. Much stronger than we expected." Zektar nodded. Deathworld ships were usually small and broken. The creatures from those planets barely understood how to make fire, much less build spaceships. They'd probably found some old wreck and got it working just enough to escape their horrible world. "There!" Tactical Officer Brim pointed at the screen. "I found it." The screen changed to show a dark shape against the stars. At first, it looked like a small rock. Then the computer adjusted the image and made it bigger. Much bigger. Zek single quotes Tar felt his heart stop beating for a moment. The thing on the screen was huge. Bigger than his flagship. Bigger than most space stations. It was long and dark, with a shape that looked like it was built for war. Strange lights blinked along its sides. The hull was covered in dents and scars, like it had been through many battles. "How big is that thing?" he whispered. Brim's hands shook as he checked his instruments. 1 kilometer long, Commander. Maybe more. The bridge went completely silent. Deathworld creatures weren't supposed to build ships that big. They weren't supposed to build anything that worked at all. "Are you sure it's from Earth?" Zektar asked. Plix checked her readings again. "The energy signature matches perfectly, sir. This ship was definitely built by Earth creatures." "But, sir, there's something else." "What?" "The ship isn't just escaping from Earth. According to these readings, it came from the direction of Earth, like it was traveling away from the planet, not trying to get to it." Zektar felt a cold feeling in his stomach. That didn't make sense. Nothing could travel to Earth and come back. The Hunt had sent 12 different missions to study the planet over the past 100 years. None ever returned. The planet killed everything that came near it. "Sir," Communications Officer Yant spoke up. "I'm receiving a signal from the unknown ship." "What kind of signal?" "It appears to be a greeting, sir. They're asking us to identify ourselves." Zektar's jaw dropped open. The creatures were talking to them. Actually talking. Deathworld creatures weren't supposed to be smart enough for real communication. They were supposed to be savage beasts driven mad by their terrible world. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered. The screen flickered and changed. A face appeared on it. Zektar had never seen an Earth creature before, but he knew this had to be one. It had strange pale skin and only 2 eyes. Its mouth was small, and it had fur growing only on the top of its head. It wore some kind of uniform with symbols he didn't recognize, but the strangest thing was its expression. The creature looked calm and friendly. It wasn't snarling or showing its teeth like a wild animal. It looked intelligent. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Indomitable," the creature said. Its voice was smooth and clear. "We've detected your ships in this system. Please identify yourselves and state your purpose in human territory." Human territory. The words hit Zektar like a punch. The creature called itself human and claimed this space belonged to its kind. It spoke like it owned these stars. Zektar looked around his bridge. His crew stared at the screen with wide eyes and open mouths. No one seemed to know what to do. "Commander?" Yan asked quietly. "Should I respond?" Zektar thought quickly. The hunt's job was to contain Deathworld species. If these humans had somehow escaped their planet, it was his duty to capture them and send them back where they belonged. They were probably dangerous. All Deathworld creatures were dangerous, but that ship was very big. And the humans seemed very calm. Too calm for a primitive creature that had just learned to travel between stars. "Open a channel," he said finally. The human on the screen smiled. The expression looked strange on its alien face, but it didn't seem threatening. "This is Commander Zektar of the Galactic Hunt Fleet," he said, using his most official voice. "You are in violation of the Deathworld Containment Protocol. Your species is classified as Class 210 dangerous. You must return to your planet immediately." The human's expression changed. It tilted its head slightly, like it was confused. "I'm sorry, Commander, but I think there's been a misunderstanding," the human said. "Could you explain what you mean by Deathworld Containment Protocol? I'm not familiar with that term." Zektar felt his confidence slip away. The creature was asking questions like it had every right to be here. Like it didn't know it was supposed to be trapped on its death planet. "Your planet Earth is classified as a Class 210 Deathworld," he explained. "No species from such a planet is allowed to leave without proper authorization and containment procedures." The human was quiet for a moment. Then it did something that made Zektar's skin crawl with fear. It laughed. The human's laugh was not loud or scary. It was warm and friendly, like someone had just told a funny joke. But to Commander Zektar and his crew, it was the most terrifying sound they had ever heard. Deathworld creatures were not supposed to laugh. They were supposed to growl and snarl and show their teeth in anger. "I'm sorry," the human said, still smiling. "It's just that we've never heard of this protocol before. Earth stopped being a death world a long time ago. We've been traveling between stars for over 200 years now." Zektar felt his world tilt sideways. 200 years? That was impossible. The hunt's records showed that Earth was still completely hostile just 50 years ago. Their last probe sent to the system had been destroyed before it even reached the planet. "You're lying," he said, though his voice shook slightly. "No species can survive on a Class 210 world, much less master space travel from it." The human's expression became more serious, but still calm. "Commander, I understand your confusion. But I assure you, Earth is very much inhabited and has been for quite some time. We have colonies in 12 star systems now. Perhaps your information is outdated? 12 star systems." Zektar's 4 hearts seemed to skip beats all at once. If these creatures were telling the truth, they had spread far beyond their home planet. But that couldn't be right. Deathworld species never survived long enough to build anything, let alone an empire. Sir, Tactical Officer Brim whispered urgently. I'm detecting more ships. What? Small craft, sir. They just appeared on our sensors. 6 of them, coming from different directions. They're moving to surround us. Zektar looked at the tactical display. 6 sleek ships had appeared around his fleet like ghosts. They were much smaller than the big human ship, but they moved with frightening speed and precision. How had they gotten so close without being detected? Captain Chun, Zektar said, trying to keep his voice steady. Call off your attack ships. We are here on official galactic hunt business. The human looked genuinely confused. Attack ships? Commander, those are just patrol craft making sure everything is okay. We detected your weapons powering up and wanted to make sure there wasn't going to be any trouble. Zektar's eyes widened. Our weapons are not powered up. Actually, sir, Brim said quietly, they are. The crew powered them automatically when we detected the Class 210 signature. It's standard protocol. The human nodded. We understand. It's natural to be cautious. But we'd appreciate it if you could power down your weapons. We're in human space, and armed foreign ships make us nervous. Human space. There was that phrase again. The creature spoke like it owned this entire region of stars. Like it had the right to make demands of the hunt. We will not power down our weapons, Zektar said firmly. You are the ones who need to surrender. By galactic law, your species must return to Earth and submit to containment procedures. The human was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was still polite, but something had changed. There was steel underneath the friendly words. Commander, I'm going to need to see some identification. What gives the hunt authority over human space? We've never signed any agreements with your organization. We don't need agreements with Deathworld species, Zektar snapped. You are classified as dangerous. It is our job to protect the galaxy from creatures like you. Creatures like us. The human smile disappeared completely. Commander, I think we need to have a serious conversation. But first, I really must insist that you power down your weapons. We will not. The human sighed, like a parent dealing with a stubborn child. Very well. Computer, activate defensive measures. Suddenly, every weapon on every hunt ship went dark. The tactical displays showed red warning lights across all systems. Main guns, missile launchers, energy cannons, everything was offline. What did you do? Zektar shouted. We politely asked you to power down your weapons, the human said calmly. Since you refused, we helped you do it. Don't worry, no permanent damage. Everything will work again once we're done talking. Brim's hands flew over his controls, his face pale with fear. Sir, it's not just the weapons. They've locked out our engines, too. We can't move. Impossible, Zektar whispered. The Hunt had the most advanced ships in the galaxy. Their security systems were unbreakable. How could primitive Deathworld creatures disable them so easily? Nothing's impossible, Commander, the human said, apparently hearing him. Just difficult. We've had to learn a lot of difficult things over the years. Living on Earth taught us to be creative with technology. This is an act of war, Zektar declared. No, it's not, the human replied firmly. War would be if we destroyed your ships. This is just a security measure to make sure everyone stays calm while we talk. Now, about that identification. Zektar realized he had no choice. His ships were helpless. The humans had technology that could shut down Hunt vessels without even trying hard. And there were 6 more human ships out there, watching and waiting. The Galactic Hunt is authorized by the Galactic Council to contain and control Deathworld species, he said stiffly. We have been monitoring Earth for over a century. Monitoring from where? The human asked. From a safe distance. How safe? Zektar didn't want to answer, but the human waited patiently. 50 light years, he finally admitted. The human raised its eyebrows. 50 light years? And based on observations from that distance, you decided we were dangerous? Every probe sent to your system was destroyed. Of course they were, the human said matter-of-factly. Unknown objects entering our space without permission tend to get shot down. That's basic security. Don't your people do the same thing? Zektar opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. The hunt did shoot down unidentified ships. Every civilized species did. It was standard procedure. But Earth is a death world, he said weakly. Earth is our home, the human corrected. A beautiful world with some challenging weather. We've learned to live with it quite well. On the tactical display, Zektar watched. The 6 human patrol ships move in perfect formation around his fleet. Their movements were smooth and controlled, like a dance. These were not the clumsy ships of primitive savages. These were the vessels of a spacefaring civilization. What do you want from us? He asked. The human smiled again, and this time it looked genuinely friendly. Just to talk, Commander. It seems like there's been a big misunderstanding. We'd like to clear it up before someone gets hurt. You're threatening us? Not at all. But you came into our space with weapons powered and started making demands. That could lead to an unfortunate incident. We'd rather avoid that. Zektar looked around his bridge. His crew watched him with frightened eyes. Their most advanced warships had been disabled in seconds by creatures they thought were barely civilized. Everything the hunt believed about Earth and its inhabitants was clearly wrong. What do you propose? He asked quietly. First, we'll restore your systems so you can move around safely. Then, I'd like to invite you and a small group to tour one of our colonies. I think seeing human civilization firsthand might help clear up some misconceptions. And if we refuse? The human's expression became very serious. Then you're free to leave human space and report back to your superiors. But Commander, I really think you should see what Earth's children have built among the stars. It might change your perspective on what makes a world deadly and what makes a people dangerous. Zektar realized he had 2 choices. He could retreat and admit that everything the hunt believed was wrong. Or he could accept the human's invitation and learn the truth about the species they had spent so long fearing. Either way, he had the terrible feeling that the galaxy would never be the same again. Commander Zektar stood in the transport bay of the human ship, trying not to show his fear. The walls around him were clean metal, painted in soft blue and white colors. Strange symbols and words covered signs and panels. Everything looked normal, which somehow made it more frightening. Normal civilizations didn't come from Deathworlds. Captain Chen walked beside him, pointing out different areas as they moved through the ship. 3 of his officers followed behind, their eyes wide as they took in everything they saw. This is our main engineering section, the human said, gesturing to a large room filled with humming machines. We can repair almost anything with the equipment here. Science Officer Blix stepped closer to look through the transparent wall. Those machines. I've never seen technology like that. We had to learn to fix things quickly on Earth, Captain Chun explained. When a storm can destroy your shelter in minutes, you get very good at building and rebuilding fast. Zektar stopped walking. Storms? Oh, yes. Earth weather can be quite extreme. We have hurricanes that can level cities, tornadoes that pick up houses, and blizzards that can bury entire towns. But we've learned to live with them, even use them for power in some cases. The humans spoke about deadly weather like it was just another fact of life, like talking about rain or sunshine. This was not how primitive creatures talked. This was how engineers talked. Captain, Plick said carefully, may I ask how long your people have been traveling in space? Oh, we first left Earth about 250 years ago. Took us a while to figure out faster than light travel, but once we did, we spread out quickly. 250 years? Tactical Officer Brim whispered. Our records show Earth was still uninhabitable 50 years ago. Captain Chen looked confused. Uninhabitable? Who told you that? Our surveys, Zektar said. Every probe we sent to your system was destroyed. Because you didn't ask permission first, the captain said patiently. If unknown ships entered your space without warning, wouldn't you defend yourself? But the environment readings, Plix insisted. The radiation levels, the weather patterns, the seismic activity, are all within normal ranges for a living planet. Yes, Earth has active weather and geology. That's what makes it alive. Dead planets are much easier to land on, but they're not very interesting places to live. They walked through another corridor, past windows that showed the inside of a huge ship. Humans moved through the halls, working at various tasks. They looked calm and organized. Some of them nodded politely to Captain Chun as she passed. How many people are on this ship? Zektar asked. About 800 crew members, plus their families. The Indomitable is a deep space explorer, so we bring everything we need for long missions. Families? Brim asked, surprised. Of course. Multi-year missions are easier when you can bring your loved ones along. We have schools, recreation areas, even parks inside the ship. Parks, inside a warship. Zektar's understanding of normal civilization cracked a little more. They entered a large room with a curved ceiling. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps, ship diagrams, and streams of information. Humans sat at control stations, monitoring everything quietly. This is our main bridge, Captain Chun said. From here, we can coordinate with other human ships and colonies throughout the sector. Other ships? Zektar asked. Oh, yes. We have quite a large fleet now. Exploration vessels, cargo ships, colony transports, and some defensive craft. Space is big, and there's always something that needs doing. Communications Officer Yan pointed at one of the displays. Those symbols. Are those other ships? Some of them. Others are space stations, colonies, mining operations. We've been busy. The screen showed dozens of symbols scattered across several star systems. Each one represented human presence in space. Zektar counted quickly and felt his stomach drop. There were more human installations than some entire civilizations had. Captain, he said slowly, exactly how many humans are there? In space? About 40 million spread across our colonies. On Earth itself, we're approaching 12 billion now. 12 billion. The number hit Zektar like a physical blow. Most civilized species had populations in the hundreds of millions. 12 billion was an enormous number for any planet to support. Your planet can support that many people? Plix asked, amazed. Earth is very productive. Rich soil, plenty of water, good weather for growing food. We've learned to work with the natural systems instead of against them. But it's a death world, Brim said weakly. Captain Chun stopped walking and turned to look at them. Her expression became very serious. I think that's where your misunderstanding begins, she said. Earth isn't a death world. It's a life world. A very alive world. Yes, the weather changes. Yes, the ground sometimes shakes. Yes, we have large predators and dangerous storms. But we also have incredible diversity, vast resources, and systems that support more life than any world we've found. Your records are wrong, Zektar insisted. Earth is classified as too dangerous for any civilized species. Based on what? Observations from 50 light years away? Based on the fate of every expedition sent there. Captain Chun was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was gentler. Commander, in the past 100 years, how many ships has your organization sent to Earth? 12 missions. Probe ships, mostly. Did any of them try to communicate first? Send a message asking for permission to approach? Zektar thought about it. No, probe missions are supposed to be secret. We study dangerous worlds from a safe distance. So you sent 12 ships into our space without warning, without identifying themselves, without any attempt at communication. And when our defense systems destroyed them, you decided we were savage monsters. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Zektar realized how their actions must have looked to the humans. Alien ships appearing in their space, refusing to answer communications, ignoring all attempts at contact. Any civilized species would have defended themselves. We followed standard protocol for Deathworld investigation, he said. But his voice sounded weak even to himself. Maybe your protocol needs updating, Captain Chun suggested. We're not the monsters you thought we were. We're farmers and engineers and artists and scientists who happen to live on a planet with interesting weather. She led them to another window, this one showing the outside of the ship. Zektar could see space beyond, filled with distant stars. But he could also see something else moving out there. More human ships. How many ships do you have? He asked quietly. In this sector? About 20. But Commander, we're not just talking about ships anymore. We're talking about entire civilizations. She touched a control panel, and the window display changed to show a planet. It was green and blue and white, covered with swirling clouds. It looked beautiful and peaceful. This is New Geneva, she said. Our first successful colony world. 2 million humans live there now. They've built cities, farms, spaceports, universities. It's a thriving world. The display changed again, showing another planet. This one was red and rocky, with domed structures scattered across its surface. This is Mars too, our mining and industrial center. The planet used to be completely barren. Now it supports 500,000 people and produces most of our heavy machinery. More planets appeared on the screen, each one showing signs of human habitation. Green worlds, ice worlds, desert worlds, ocean worlds. All of them transformed by human presence. You've conquered 12 star systems, Zektar whispered. We've settled in 12 star systems, Captain Chung corrected. And we've shared several of them with other species who needed homes. Other species? Of course. We've met 17 different intelligent species so far. Most of them were struggling with various problems. We've been able to help. Zektar felt dizzy. The humans weren't just survivors from a death world. They were a thriving interstellar civilization that helped other species. They were what the galaxy thought it was, but better. I don't understand, he said. If you're so advanced, so capable, why haven't you contacted the Galactic Council? Captain Chun smiled sadly. We tried, Commander. 50 years ago, we sent diplomatic missions to 3 different Council worlds. They were all destroyed before they could deliver our messages. Apparently, ships from Earth are shot on sight. The truth hit Zektar like cold water. The Galactic Council had been preventing first contact with humanity for decades, believing they were protecting the galaxy from dangerous monsters. Instead, they had been hiding from the most successful civilization anyone had ever seen. We gave up trying to make official contact, Captain Chun continued. But we've never stopped being curious about the rest of the galaxy. That's why ships like this one patrol the borders of human space. We keep hoping to meet neighbors who want to talk instead of shoot. Zektar looked around the bridge again, seeing it with new eyes. This wasn't the crude vessel of primitive savages. This was the flagship of a civilization that had turned the galaxy's worst planet into the foundation of an empire. And they had done it all while the rest of the galaxy cowered in fear of shadows. 3 days later, Commander Zektar stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching something impossible happen outside the window. Human ships were moving his entire fleet through space, like they were guiding children on a field trip. "Sir," Communications Officer Yant said nervously, "the humans are asking if we're ready to see the next system." Zektar nodded tiredly. "Tell them yes." The past 3 days had destroyed everything he thought he knew about the universe. Captain Chun had kept her promise to show them human space, and each new sight had been more shocking than the last. The journey started at the edge of human territory, where the borders met empty space. Even there, the humans had built massive sensor arrays and communication stations. The structures were huge but elegant, designed to work with the natural forces around them instead of fighting against them. These stations monitor all traffic in and out of human space. Captain Chun had explained. "We like to know who's visiting. How far do they reach?" Science Officer Plix had asked. "About 50 light years in all directions. We've been tracking your fleet since you entered the outer detection grid." 50 light years. The humans had been watching the hunt from the moment they approached the Sol system. They had known exactly who was coming and how many ships they had. The hunt's surprise investigation had never been a surprise at all. From the border stations, the human escort had taken them to New Geneva, the first colony world. Zektar had expected to see a struggling settlement, maybe some basic shelters and farming equipment. Instead, he found a fully developed civilization. Cities covered the continents, connected by transport systems that moved faster than anything the hunt used. Orbital stations hung in space above the planet like metal moons, connected to the surface by elevator cables that stretched from ground to sky. The space elevators make it easy to move cargo up and down, Captain Chun had said casually, as if building such structures was normal. Much more efficient than rocket ships for regular transport. Zektar had seen space elevators before, but only around the most advanced worlds in the galaxy. Building them required incredible engineering skill and massive resources. The humans had built 6 of them around their first colony world. The next stop had been the industrial system of Kepler 442. Here, the humans had taken 3 dead planets and turned them into manufacturing centers. Massive ships moved between the worlds, carrying raw materials and finished products. But what amazed Zektar most was how they had done it. Instead of strip mining the planets like most species did, the humans had built their factories to work with natural processes. They used solar collectors that looked like giant flowers, turning to follow the system star. They built refineries inside asteroid mining ships, processing materials while they collected them. "We learned to be efficient on Earth," Captain Chun had explained. "When resources are limited, you learn not to waste anything. But these planets have plenty of resources," Tactical Officer Brim had pointed out. "Now they do. But we always plan for the future. What happens when these resources run out? We build systems that can adapt and change when needed." The humans thought ahead in ways that amazed the hunt officers. While most species built for today's needs, humans built for problems that might not arise for hundreds of years. The third day had brought them to the most shocking sight yet, the Vega system, where humans shared space with 3 other species. The first species was the Kethri, long-necked creatures whose home world had been destroyed by their own sun going unstable. The humans had given them an entire planet to rebuild their civilization. The second was the Zisktall Collective, insect-like beings whose hive ships had been damaged in some ancient war. The humans had helped them repair their vessels and provided materials to expand their fleet. The third was the most surprising, the Mordek, a species that the Galactic Council had declared extinct 50 years ago. They lived in massive space habitats built with human help, their entire surviving population safe and growing again. "How do you manage it?" Zektar had asked Captain Chun. 3 different species, all with different needs, all living in the same system. "Carefully," she had answered with a smile, "and with a lot of patience. The key is making sure everyone has what they need to be happy." But don't they fight? Compete for resources? Sometimes they disagree about things. That's normal. But they've learned that cooperation works better than competition. The Kethri are excellent farmers. The Zistal are master builders, and the Mordek are incredible artists. Each group does what they're best at, and everyone benefits. The Hun officers had watched alien ships from 3 species working together around human space stations. They had seen Kethri food transports delivering supplies to Zistal construction sites. They had watched Mordek art installations being installed on human colony ships, thought it was everything the Galactic Council claimed to be, but actually working. Now, on the 4th day, they were approaching the final destination, Earth itself. "Commander," Jens said quietly, "we're receiving clearance to approach the Sol system." Through the observation windows, Zektar could see their destination ahead. The star that humans called Sol burned bright and steady, surrounded by the orbital paths of its planets. As they moved closer, the sensors began picking up signs of activity. Massive structures orbited between the planets. Some were clearly space stations, but others were harder to identify. They looked like cities floating in space, connected by streams of ships moving cargo and people. "Sir," Plix called from her station, "I'm detecting thousands of ships in this system. Maybe tens of thousands." Captain Chun's voice came over the communication system. "Welcome to the Sol system, home to humanity. We're approaching Earth now, but you might want to look at our outer planets first." The main screen switched to show a red planet covered with green patches. Where the Hunt's records showed Mars as a dead world, they now saw a living one. Atmosphere processors were slowly converting the thin air into something humans could breathe. Cities had been built in protective domes, but they were growing larger every year. "Mars is our closest colony," Captain Chun explained. "We've been working on it for almost 200 years now. In another century, people will be able to walk outside without breathing equipment." They passed massive space stations orbiting Jupiter, each one the size of a small moon. Mining ships moved among the planet's satellites, harvesting resources from worlds that most species couldn't even approach. But it was Earth itself that took Jektar's breath away. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of its surface, broken by brown and green continents. White clouds swirled in patterns that looked almost artistic. From space, it was hard to believe this world had ever been considered dangerous. "The weather is particularly nice today," Captain Chun said with obvious pride. "Spring is just starting in the northern hemisphere." As they moved closer, the sensors picked up more details. Cities covered parts of every continent, connected by transportation networks that looked like bright lines across the landscape. Orbital platforms hung above the planet at different heights, some for manufacturing, others for agriculture, still others for research. How many people live down there? Brim asked in wonder. "About 12 billion now," Captain Chun answered. "And they're all doing quite well." Ships moved constantly between the planet and its orbital stations. Some were cargo vessels carrying goods up and down. Others were passenger transports bringing people to and from the colonies. The traffic was so heavy, it looked like streams of light moving through space. "This is impossible," Zektar whispered. "How can so many people live on a death world?" "Because it's not a death world, Commander. It never was. It's just a world with character." Through the observation deck speakers, they could hear communications traffic from around the system. Ships reporting their positions. Stations coordinating cargo transfers. Colony worlds checking in with their status updates. It was the sound of a civilization that worked smoothly and efficiently. "Commander," Captain Chun's voice became more serious. "I need to ask you something important. When you report back to the Galactic Council, what are you going to tell them about what you've seen?" Zektar looked around at his officers. They all wore the same expression of shock and wonder. Everything they had believed about humanity, about Earth, about Deathworlds, had been completely wrong. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "I'm not sure they'll believe me." "Then perhaps you should bring some evidence. We'd be happy to send an ambassador back with you. Someone who can answer questions and help clear up any remaining misunderstandings." Zektar realized what the human was offering. First contact between humanity and the Galactic Council, mediated by the Hunt. It would be the most important diplomatic moment in galactic history. "Why?" he asked. "After we tried to capture you, after we threatened you, why would you want to join our civilization?" Captain Chun was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of centuries of human experience. "Because, Commander, we've learned that the galaxy is a very big place. And big places are always better when you have good neighbors to share them with." 6 months later, Commander Zektar stood in the main assembly hall of the Galactic Council, watching history unfold before his eyes. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from 200 different species, all listening as the Council President read the formal declaration. By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, the President announced, "Humanity is hereby granted full membership status and welcomed into the galactic community." The chamber erupted in applause. Zektar looked across the crowd and saw species he had never imagined could agree on anything, all clapping their various appendages in approval. It had taken months of debate, investigation, and careful diplomacy, but the galaxy had finally accepted what Zektar had learned during his visit to human space. Humanity was not a threat to be contained. They were a solution to problems the galaxy had struggled with for centuries. Next to the President's podium, Ambassador Sarah Chun stood quietly, wearing the simple blue uniform that humans seemed to prefer. She had spent the past 6 months answering questions, giving demonstrations, and patiently explaining human civilization to anyone who would listen. Her calm competence had won over even the most suspicious council members. After the formal ceremony, Zektar made his way through the crowd toward the human ambassador. Other representatives stopped her constantly to shake hands or exchange pleasantries. Everyone wanted to meet the people who had turned the galaxy's most feared planet into its most successful civilization. "Ambassador," he said when he finally reached her. "Congratulations." "Thank you, Commander. I couldn't have done it without your help." That was true. Zektar's report to the Council had started the whole process. When he returned from human space, he had faced a choice: file a standard report claiming that humanity was contained, or tell the truth about what he had seen. He had chosen the truth, even though it meant admitting that everything the Hunt believed was wrong. The investigation that followed had been intense. Council scientists had reviewed every piece of data about Earth and humanity. They had interviewed Zektar and his crew dozens of times. They had even sent new diplomatic missions to human space. Properly announced and authorized this time, every investigation had reached the same conclusion: humanity was the most successful civilization the galaxy had ever seen. "Any word on your new assignment?" Ambassador Chun asked. Zektar nodded. "The Council is restructuring the Hunt completely. Instead of containing Deathworld species, we'll be helping them. Turns out there are quite a few worlds out there that other species have written off as too dangerous." "That sounds like important work." "It is. And we're going to need human advisors to help us do it right. Turns out you're the only people who really understand how to live with dangerous planets." Over the past months, requests for human help had flooded in from across the galaxy. Species struggling with hostile environments wanted human engineers to show them how to adapt. Worlds damaged by war or natural disaster asked for human aid in rebuilding. Even advanced civilizations were curious about human techniques for managing complex multi-species societies. The humans had responded with typical efficiency, They sent expert teams to worlds that needed help. They shared technology freely with any species that asked. They mediated disputes between groups that had been fighting for centuries. Speaking of dangerous planets, Ambassador Chen said, I heard about your mission to Zarian 5. Zektar smiled, remembering his first assignment under the new system. Zarian 5 was a world covered in acid storms and earthquake swarms. The Zarian people had been trapped underground for thousands of years, slowly dying as their resources ran out. Working with human engineers, the Hun had helped the Zarians build surface cities that could survive their world's hostile conditions. The structures looked like flowers that closed during acid storms and reopened when the weather cleared. Within 6 months, the entire Zarian population had moved to the surface for the first time in their recorded history. It was impressive, he admitted. Your people made it look easy. Living with bad weather is easy once you know how, the ambassador said with a laugh. You just have to think of the planet as your partner instead of your enemy. That was the key insight that had changed everything. Other species saw hostile planets as obstacles to overcome. Humans saw them as puzzles to solve. Where others fought against natural forces, humans learned to work with them. The results spoke for themselves. In the 6 months since first contact, human-assisted colonies had been established on 17 worlds that had previously been considered uninhabitable. Species that had been struggling for survival were now thriving, and the techniques humans had developed for managing hostile environments were being adapted for use across the galaxy. Commander Zektar, a voice called from across the reception hall. There you are. Zektar turned to see Council President Malthik approaching, her purple skin bright with excitement. Behind her walked a group of officials from various species, all looking eager to speak with him. President, he said politely, how can I help you? We've been discussing the success of the human integration program, she said. The council wants to expand it. How would you feel about leading a new department dedicated to identifying and helping struggling civilizations? Zektar looked at Ambassador Chen, who nodded encouragingly. What kind of department? Think of it as the opposite of the old hunt, President Malthik explained. Instead of containing threats, you'd be finding opportunities. Instead of isolating dangerous species, you'd be helping them become productive members of the galactic community. With human assistance? With human partnership, the president corrected. They volunteered to work with us on any world that needs help. Apparently, they enjoy challenges. That was certainly true. Zektar had seen how humans reacted to impossible problems. Where other species gave up, humans got excited. The more difficult the situation, the more creative their solutions became. I'd be honored to lead such a department, he said finally. Excellent. President Malthik looked pleased. Your first assignment will be the Rigel sector. There are 3 species there that have been struggling with various environmental problems for decades. The humans think they can help. As the president moved on to speak with other officials, Ambassador Chen smiled at Zektar. Ready for another adventure? After what I've seen humanity accomplish, I'm ready for anything, he replied. And that was the truth. The past 6 months had taught him that the galaxy was full of possibilities he had never imagined. Worlds that seemed impossible to live on could become thriving colonies. Species that appeared too different to coexist could become close allies. Problems that had persisted for centuries could be solved with the right approach. The humans had shown them all a new way of thinking. Instead of fearing the dangerous and unknown, they could embrace it as an opportunity to grow and learn. You know, Ambassador Chen said thoughtfully, I think this is just the beginning. There are so many worlds out there, so many species that could use a helping hand. We could spend the next 1,000 years just getting started. Zektar looked around the reception hall, watching representatives from dozens of species talking and laughing together. 6 months ago, Many of these groups had been suspicious enemies. Now, they were working partners, united by their shared goals of exploration and mutual aid. It was exactly what the Galactic Council had always claimed to be, but had never managed to become. Until now. 1,000 years sounds like a good start, he said. Outside the assembly hall's great windows, ships moved through space in steady streams. Human vessels worked alongside alien craft, carrying supplies to new colonies, transporting volunteers to worlds that needed help, and exploring systems that had been ignored for too long. The galaxy was bigger than anyone had imagined, and full of wonders waiting to be discovered. But now, for the first time in their history, the civilized species had guides who could show them how to thrive in even the most impossible places. The children of Earth had taught them all a simple truth. There was no such thing as a Deathworld. There were only worlds that hadn't found the right people to love them yet. And in a galaxy full of supposedly impossible planets, that made all the difference. Years later, when historians wrote about this period, they would call it the Great Opening, the time when the galaxy stopped hiding from its own potential and started reaching for the stars. But Zektar would always remember it as the day he learned that the most dangerous creatures in the universe were also the kindest, and that made them the most powerful force for good